All right, welcome in everybody. The Art Coach Podcast, episode 22. Here we go. I'm going to be kind of bouncing off of episode 21. So if you haven't heard episode 21, you don't necessarily have to go to it right now, but it's going to inform a little bit more about what I'm talking about here. So it's kind of like part two, but you can listen to this episode alone. I'm going to make sure to make it so that you can do that. But maybe after this one, you'll actually want to go listen to episode 21 as well. So in episode 21, I talked a lot about ritual, narrative, and our connection to the divine or to God or whatever you want to call it as such, as a person in life, right? As somebody who's been given life, who's just been born, right? We just kind of plopped here into the world, which kind of appeared into consciousness, right? We didn't ask for this, let's say. And as an artist, right? What does ritual mean for the artist? Well, ritual means being in it. That's what the meaning of ritual is. It's not being distracted. It means you go in and you do it as if it has the highest meaning to you, the most importance to you. And if you do that with your art, then your art will become closer and closer to what people have called the divine or the sublime. Things that will last throughout ages. It'll last continuously forever. Like it'll be able to be seen. It's archetypal. It's something that can be witnessed today and in the future and in the past, and everybody would understand it in some way, right? And that's why the great art from the Renaissance and before, right? Most of this was religious art. People travel across the entire world to Italy to look at Michelangelo's David, the sculpture, to look at the Sistine Chapel, just to stand in front of it. Right, that is sublime art. That is the art of the divine. And maybe it's because the subject matter was so closely related to the divine, but it's because the artist itself, the person who was making it, was closely connected to a divine structure. Now, that's going to bring into this podcast in particular. Now, again, I'm going to say this again, like I'm not coming at you as a person who is baptized or who's any part of any kind of religion. I'm an artist. So I want to understand as much as possible about what people do. If I have a better understanding of what religions mean and what certain scriptures mean and what holy texts mean and what people are been going on about for thousands of years about what God is and what what all of this means, right? People have been talking about it for thousands of years. There's a reason for it, and we should investigate it as artists so we have a better understanding of what's going on. Now, am I an atheist? Am I this? Am I that? I don't know, right? I honestly, what I believe is that there's a divinity within all of us because we have consciousness. We're able to be aware. We're able to see the suffering of ourselves in our own life, and we're also able to show compassion to the suffering of others. There's a divine nature to that, and I think that's at the highest value. So everybody has a value to them, no matter what they've done or what they've said or any of that. And so that's closely related in some ways to a Christian and Catholic, Judeo-Christian value-based structure. Now, why do I think that? Well, because of my experiences. My experiences being married, being in a union with a person who I love and I've been with for a long time. I see that because I've seen my friend. I don't have children yet, but I've seen my friends have children, and the way that they act towards their children is divine. The way that they love their children is divine. The way that my sister loves her children, the way that my mother loved me, loved my siblings, was an unconditional love that is not. It's not. You're not able to describe it any other way. You're not able to describe that through science. Like, yeah, the mother should take care of the child biologically because it makes sense because they need to be taken care of. But, well, okay, so at a certain point, the child can mature and be gone from the mother's nest. And so why does the mother still love it, right? The love goes beyond what's biologically necessary. And so the materialists, the secularists, the atheists, it falls flat a little bit. And that's okay. You can believe that all you want. And now that goes along with another thing in this podcast. The podcast, I'm calling it maybe Art, Divinity, and the God You Can't Escape. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that you are, if you're listening to this and you're atheist and you're this and you're that, do it. Be that. I don't care. It's up to you for you to decide. What I'm going to do is describe to you what I'm seeing as an artist. That's the point. And like I said, the more you have an understanding of the world around you, the better your art will be. So if you can take it on yourself to disregard your own ideological possession and accept and just read and become knowledgeable of what's out there, your art is going to be more informed and it will be able to connect to more people. It'll be able to connect to you better. And so right now I've been on this journey of just reading and listening and watching. And for a long time, I considered myself an atheist. When I was in high school, I was like, there's no way. It was like Santa Claus to me, like a divine butler, right? God was a divine butler that you like look up and he watches you if you do bad or good, and you get a piece of coal, right? i.e. hell, or you go to heaven, you get the toy you want. It's kind of a silly caricature of what I believe a God is at this point. So first, let me get into the definitions here. What do I think God is? God is a pattern across time that is visible when nothing else is, let's say. So God is also the thing that you put at the highest value. So let's say it's just that. God is the thing that you put at the top of the value scale. Like you value getting lunch, you value your kids even more. You would give up your lunch for your kids, okay? Sure. You would give up something else, right, for something else, which means you have a hierarchy. You have a substructure of what is the most valuable and what is less valuable. Now, the thing that you place at the very, very top of that is God. Now, whether or not you want to call it God because you're an atheist, it doesn't matter. You will have something there. And I can go into examples of this, right? And I can go into negative examples and positive examples, right? A negative example would be a drug addict or an alcoholic. An alcoholic loves alcohol so much that they put alcohol at the highest value. They put the drug at the highest value. So the alcohol changes the way they act. It changes their mood. It influences their decision making. It changes the very path of their life, right? It changes their relationships. It changes everything about them. Sounds all powerful to me. It sounds omnipotent, right? It sounds like it's a very powerful thing. That sounds like God. It changes who you are. It changes what you do. That's a God. Okay? The mother nurtures her child. The mother takes care of her children. The mother protects her child. She puts that above herself. She would lie down in front of a car to stop it from hitting her child. It would cause her to take on bodily harm and possibly death in knowing that the child would be protected. That is a God, right? The nurturing and protection of the child is the God in that sense, okay? The entrepreneur, the businessman says, I want success, I want money, I want notoriety, I want fame, I want my business and my idea, my invention to reach millions, okay? It changes it influences them, just like everything else. It influences them, it changes their behavior, it changes their decision making, it changes who they are at the structure of their own reality. Sounds like a God to me. The artist, right? What's the artist's God? Well, if you're a secular artist, if you're an atheist, or you're somebody who follows Jesus or whatever it is, you're Buddhist, it doesn't matter. If you're an artist, you place the act of creating, the act of entering the flow space, the act of being somebody who brings forth their authenticity and expresses it out within a medium at the highest level. Right? You've heard artists say, I only feel good when I'm creating. I'm not in the hell of my own making, of my own mind when I'm creating. It's like all the loud noises and voices go away and I enter myself and I am myself when I create. Well, sounds like a God to me, right? And I'm not saying it's a God, an entity. It's something out there that you can go shake hands with, right? That's not what God is. God is not there is no God that is an entity, right? Even if you go back to Greek mythology, Zeus was not a man with a lightning bolt in his hand. That's an illustration of a caricature of him. Zeus was the god of lightning and thunder. When there was lightning and thunder, they said it was Zeus, right? It was a pattern across time that was witnessable, that was not within their own understanding of what was happening. Yes, there are ways to explain how lightning occurs, but it doesn't change the fact that Zeus is appearing. Even if you say, oh, it's ions collecting, it's the positive and negative charge from the ground to the sky, and then something happens, and I don't know the exact specifics of how it works, but science has figured out what lightning does and how it works. That doesn't change the fact that it's still Zeus, right? Just because you understand how Zeus operates doesn't mean it's not Zeus. Now, you might be thinking, oh, Sean, you're crazy. You believe in Zeus? No, I don't. I'm not saying I believe that Zeus is a powerful being that will change the course of my life. But what I'm saying is that there's no difference. right? It's both. One does not deny the other. Zeus does not deny the ions and the ions and the positive and negative charge of lightning. Doesn't deny that, and that does not deny Zeus. And so, essentially what I'm saying is that you cannot live your life without a God. It is impossible. No matter what you do, you will have something that you place at the highest order, the highest level of importance, and that will be the thing that guides you, and that is God. And so the religious people, what they say is, above your external metrics of desire and order, above the God you call God, i.e. alcoholic, being a mother, being an entrepreneur, being an artist, the examples I gave, the thing that you value the highest, there is something else. There's an actual God, the creator, that is the thing that you should place at the highest. And when you're in relationship with him, it allows you to act a specific way, and to have a relationship with him, you must act a specific way. Now, that's the religious way of doing it. Now, the purpose of that is to say, okay, above the material world, there's something higher than me. That's the purpose of it. And what it brings to you is a certain level of surrender to things being okay. Whether I live another 50 years or I die tomorrow, things will be okay. It gives you a level of acceptance of your mortality. It gives you a level of acceptance of your fragility and the suffering that you'll exist through in your life. And that as a tool, right? Not to say that God is a tool, but that as a tool in your everyday life helps you. It's good for you to have a sense of calm when it comes to your fate, whether or not you'll survive 50 years or go tomorrow. Now, that's the purpose that I'm seeing right now. There's a purpose, obviously, more than that too. There's a purpose of describing our world in a specific way as archetype and narrative that teaches us what happens when XYZ happens, and what to do in certain scenarios, and how to act, and how to be more like, Christ-like, let's say. Now, all of these things are fine, right? So how does this relate to art? So there's a book by John Eliot Gardiner called Music in the Castle of Heaven. And it's a book about Bach. Now, he's a composer and he's a conductor of classical music, and he looks at Bach as the best music that's ever been made. Now, his main interjection about this is that Bach had a connection to the divine. Now, I'll even say this writer claims to be an atheist. He claims to be a secularist. But he believes that without the divine, the art suffers. Without a connection to God or a connection to a sacred entity, a sacredness, art suffers. And even in his own creations, he feels that pull towards that. And he says, well, my brain is just stupid for thinking that, atheism is the answer. And so his logical, rational mind says, and his intellectual mind says, yeah, we're in a scientific material world. There is no creator, right? There's no external force. It's just us here, and that's it. But when he connects to the beauty of art, he sees that there's divinity. Now, that in itself is a description of the divine. Now, if you're an artist and you're trying to make something beautiful, like I'm not talking about, I'm making a beautiful landscape, I'm making a beautiful bowl of fruit, a beautiful figure painting, a beautiful this or that. You're making what you want to make. That's what the beautiful part is. Now, you could be an artist that likes the macabre and likes the vulgar, likes the dirty, the ugly, and celebrates that. That's the same thing as loving the beauty, because what you see in it is beauty. You don't see it as bad. So if someone were to say they don't like that kind of stuff, they place a value judgment and say, that isn't beauty. But you can't say that it's not beauty because it's in the eye of the beholder, right? It's subjective to the experience of the person. So if you're aiming to make something that you believe honestly is a connection to beauty, to true beauty, then you are connecting to the divine, because true beauty and the divine, they are connected, and it's connected through the relationship of yourself with yourself and with maybe the higher power or whatever you believe. Now, if you connect beauty to your art, if you connect your willingness to try to make beauty to an attempt to just an attempt to make something beautiful, then you are attempting to connect to the divine by definition. Okay. So in an interview, Dennis Prager, which is he's a practicing Jewish person. He has a podcast. He's, whatever. You can Google him. I don't know very much about him, but he was interviewing Gardiner about the book, and he asked him, can you make good art without a connection to the divine, without a connection to the sacred, or without a connection to God? And Gardiner said no. Now, he's not saying you can't make good music and art if you're not a Jewish person or a Christian person or whatever. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that you can't make good art unless you surrender to the idea that there's an intrinsic divine quality to the existence of consciousness itself, that as an artist you're trying to obtain and then express out yourself. And so even if you're a secular artist, you're an atheist artist, the act, by definition, the act of attempting to make beauty, that act is a connection to the divine. It's a connection to a God. It's a connection to the highest value of importance, right? Your highest value of importance when you're trying to express something out that's beautiful is to look upward and say, I want to make the thing that's beautiful. That's a connection to the highest value. So that is then placed at the top and is now your God. Okay? And so even if you make art that's about being atheist, that's about being in a world of no meaning, right? And for you, you're connecting to the truest authentic version of what you think you are. Inside of that automatically gets infused with divinity, right? So it's like you can't escape it by definition, because if you act authentically and express authentically, what you're doing is embarking in the divine. It's by definition, that's what you're doing. And so that's kind of the thing that I want to get at here, is that there's this thing that's happening in the world, and it's the refusal of the divine. It's the refusal of this because of our logical mind. And this will go back to my previous episode where I explained how Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead and we have killed him. Okay. During the scientific revolution and the industrial revolution as it was coming, in 1882, Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead and we have killed him. He was talking about how our ideology was changing from the divine to ritual, from ritual to and the divine to God, into the world of objects, the world of scientific materialism, the world of cause and effect, the world of the Big Bang, let's say. Now, all of those things have an immense purpose, and most scientists actually in history were religious people as well. But when you cling only to that, you lose a part of what it means to be human, what it means to be part of a system, a network, a cosmos that is so much larger and so incomprehensible that it changes our way of seeing the world and thinking of the world. And it also, as he says, shifts our ability to act morally, and it changes our ability to create our own morals for ourselves. Now, we can go deep in talking about that quote alone. We can talk about it for an entire podcast. I talked about it briefly in the last one. And the only thing I really want to add is that what he was saying was that it's really hard to create your own values when you essentially believe that the universe is a meaningless cause and effect system. Because in that system, in the world of randomness and the world of random particles and rocks bouncing into each other until the perfect system happens where life happens, and then here we are talking through a cell phone into a podcast, you can't place something at the highest, right? You can't place something at the top because it's all randomized. And so whether or not I kill the ant with a magnifying glass below me, or I let it live to do the thing that it's supposed to do as a divine creature, right? There's no difference because I'm just a random object acting as I should and as I do. Okay, that's fine, right? There's a reason for that ideology to happen and to occur, but it doesn't need to be removed from our idea of ritual and ceremony and narrative and connection to the divine. You can completely believe that while also realizing that you're part of this network and connection to this amazing system that is unexplained. And by releasing yourself to that, it gives you a connection to the divine. It surrenders yourself to the idea that you should have all the answers, the idea that you should know what to do next, that you should know how to do what you need to do to get to where you need to get to, right? when you release that and you allow it, you just remove from your nervous system. Your nervous system gets to relax finally. It says, "Oh, I'm okay. Now I can just act as such. I can enter ritual." If you're constantly fearing what will come, if you're constantly unsure of what will come or what will happen after, your nervous system can never calm down. You can never ever actually let go and say, "I am, and it's okay. I am the way that I am, and it's okay. I am the way that I am, and I aim to be better, and that's okay." It's like, it's very slight, it's very subtle, and I felt it myself when I was younger, and I believed myself as an atheist. At first, it was kind of a proclamation of rebellion and a proclamation of intellectual superiority in a way, and I think that happens for a lot of people. But it was also, what it came with it was a sense of dread, a sense of my nervous system never quite being able to release and be softened. Maybe it came with the acceptance of my own mortality as well, because as Marcus Aurelius said, a man has two lives. The second one begins once you realize you only have one, right? So accepting the memento mori, right? You accept that you're one day going to die. Your nervous system gets to relax, because before you accept it, you're in a heightened sense of like, oh my God, I could die at any moment. And you're trying to prevent it. Though you might not be thinking, oh, I'm going to the grocery store. I'm not really trying to prevent myself to die. Your nervous system thinks that way because inside of your identity, the scaffolding of your identity hasn't actually accepted yourself as somebody who will one day perish. And when you live in that place, your nervous system, the way that you act, it's just slightly changed, and it can be very subtle or it can be very, very strong, and you might not even know what's causing it. But as soon as you surrender to the idea that everything's going to be okay, whether you die tomorrow or in, like I said, 50 years, there will be, the world will continue, right? The people who loved you will mourn you, of course. Like, that's the first thing that's going to happen. People who loved you will miss you. Well, they will cry, right? But eventually the world continues to go, and what you did while you were alive is what's most important. So while you're here, while you have this brief little glimpse into our consciousness, our little sliver of reality between the cosmos and the quantum, we have this little gap of identifiable reality. We can say, hey, I'm going to do the best I can. And that, again, is a connection to what people say is the divine. If you surrender to that idea, you are by definition surrendering to the divine, right? You're surrendering to fate and the divine. They're the same thing. They're interconnected. If you're surrendering to that, then you allow yourself to just be, and then your nervous system calms down. Your nervous system says, oh, it's okay. I have enough. I've made it this far for a reason. I'm going to make it as far as I need to do what I need to do. And once that happens, once it ends, and that's okay, right? That surrender, that release brings your nervous system down to not a fight or flight, but an allowance into ritual, an allowance into acceptance, an allowance into action. And when you're an artist, right, when you're trying to pull out the best version of yourself and then express it out into a medium, right, you're trying to take your ideas and then authentically, without influence of the external world, without influence of somebody else wanting you to do it a certain way, right, you create something, and then don't ever, like, imagine you create something and then you burn it, right? You create it only so that you can see it appear in front of you. You create the thing and then you look at it. That's the point of that. That's how you make authentic art. That's how you make authentic music. You make the song so that your ears can enjoy it. You don't make it so that somebody else can enjoy it. You make it so that you can enjoy it. And that's how you get closer to to divine authenticity, right? I'll call it divine authenticity. That's how you get closer to the authentic self, the authentic expression of yourself, the authentic imaginative decision-making, right? So art is the creation of novelty, the creation of things in our three-dimensional world through the expression of our personal imaginative decision-making, our personal expression, our personal authentic expression. That's what art is. And the more and more we get connected to that, the more and more we're able to do that, the more and more our art will become sublime. It'll become something that lasts through the ages. And so when Gardiner looks at Bach, he's finding this. He's seeing that that's what he did. He released himself from himself and said, I'm creating for something bigger, right? He put not himself, his goals, his own notoriety, his own everything at the top. Instead of that, he put the divine at the top, and that allowed him to make the most beautiful art because he knew that what he was making it for was bigger than him. And look, we're talking about him hundreds of years later. right? That alone is evidence that it worked. Now, of course, like I said, there's secular artists that live forever as well, that live on forever. I get it. It exists. But just because they say they're atheists or they're this or they're that, doesn't mean that what they're acting out isn't what's been described as the divine by definition, right? You can't define it another way. So this whole podcast, I know it's kind of like going in a little bit of a circle here. It's really to just press home that you cannot exist without having a God. You cannot exist without having a thing that you value the most at the top of your pyramid, or maybe even if you want to flip the analogy, at the foundation of your pyramid. If it's the foundation, it allows you to move upward. If it's the thing at the top, it allows you to aim upward. Either way, depends on which one you want to use in your analogy and your metaphor. Now, what's really important here is that the secular and the atheist can make good art. But I'm just going to tell you now, like the way I see it is that you might think you're an atheist, but your art by definition contradicts that, because when you truly connect to that, you are connecting to something that is more than you. Now, again, I'm not saying that it's the creator and it's the God, it's the Alpha and Omega. I'm just saying that it's something that's divine and it's something that's below the substructure of our reality. Now, the other thing that comes to mind now is so the modern art world today, right? The modern art world today, which I talked about a little bit in my last episode, it's like devoid of meaning while also being forced into meaning. So you can think of, a big old rectangular square and someone's marking it with a Sharpie, and it's like performance art or something. You've seen the videos on social media making fun of these people or pointing fun at them. Now, are they doing what I'm saying? Are they trying to make authentic art? Maybe. Like I can't sit here and say you're not making art, right? I'm not Justin Bua, let's say. I'm not the person who says that's not art because it's not good art, because doesn't take skill or 1,000 hours to understand and make 10,000 hours, right? I'm not that person. But if the thing that they're putting at the top of the value structure of their identity and their purpose when they make that art is the desire to be as authentic and themselves as possible, then it can be divine art. It can be connected to the divine. Now, if they're putting something else there, like ideology, right? Like they want to make a statement about what's happening within the world, that's not necessarily divine. That's their opinion about what's happening, right? That's not something that's not an archetypal truth. What their opinion is about the meat industry is not an archetypal truth, right? It's their opinion that's been casted on them by an ideological possession that is kind of brewing throughout the world. Now, if that's your thing, do it. I'll go all in. But realize that the metric of success should not be based on the amount of likes. It shouldn't be based on how much money you can make. It shouldn't be based on any of those things. It should be based on how can I bring forth myself as truly as possible with my art every time that I make it, and allow that to be the purpose. And then while I do that, the meaning comes into the art. The meaning fills the art. The spirit of the meaning fills the art. So what the art world does today is they choose a meaning, right? They say, I want to make art that is about this. It's about the income inequality in the world. It's about, the wage gap between men and women. It's about, right? There's so many things that we could talk about politically in the art world. It's about this thing. Now, what do I do to make my art fit into that box? That's what the art world does today, right? Instead, my approach is rather to allow myself to create the art, and then while I'm making it, I decide and I allow my intuition to guide me to the meaning of it. Right? When the image comes to mind for me, it's channeled. It comes in and I say, wow, that's an interesting image. Let me elaborate more on it. I find out what it is, what it means, what it looks like, and then I make it. And then during the 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 hours, 1,000 hours that I'm making the thing, I allow myself to meditate on what it means, on what it could mean. And then I release it into the world. Not ever thinking that it should ever be released, but knowing that it will be, because that's what I do with my art. I want it to reach other people. And then when I do release it, I don't necessarily tell people what it is. The artist statement, the titling, all of that stuff, I talked about it in episode 21 also. That stuff devalues art in my mind, because visual art, if you're writing, then sure, write. But if you're making visual art with visual language, you should allow the interpretation to be held through the experience. So when I go stand in front of a Rothko, and people have criticized Rothko as just making a big blue canvas, what I do is I allow myself to sit in front of it until my mind goes somewhere because of it, right? If you stand in front of a horrific car crash, your mind goes to a specific place. You are influenced by what you see. If you stand in front of a playground and you watch your child play with other children, your mind goes to other places. Your mind goes somewhere because of that, because you're being influenced by that thing. When you watch a movie, everything, when you listen to music, right? The music, the frequency of the music changes the way that you feel, and that changes the way that you think, and then your mind goes somewhere and you think about something. The experience is the meaning of what you're seeing. So when you go sit in front of a Rothko, you sit in front of it and you allow yourself to be fully engulfed by the big blue canvas. And then wherever your eye goes, you're looking at the canvas up, down, left, right, and into the painting. That's just your eye. That's just your eye absorbing the information, just like your ears absorb the information of a song. When you look at a painting, you allow your mind to also wander the surface. So as you look at it, you look up and down, your mind also starts to wander, and your mind also starts to go places. And so while you're looking at it, maybe it brings up thoughts of your childhood. That's the meaning of the painting, because your experience is being brought forward. Your experience of it is actually being exfoliated out by being in front of it, right? The blue painting, the blue canvas is scrubbing out a feeling in your body, and that feeling brings forth thoughts in your own mind. And those thoughts are authentic thoughts, because there's no one telling you what to think. There's no one saying the Rothko means this, and then now that's all you can think, right? That's what I mean by the artist statement, and the titling of an art diminishes its value in its interpretation. When you add words to a visual language, you're putting it into a box. And I said this again. Quentin Tarantino said, "I don't tell people the meaning of my movies." He doesn't tell people what it means. He doesn't say it, because then from now on, that's the only way. And Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in her book Big Magic as well. Highly recommend reading that book if you get a chance. She's doing book signing after she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she has somebody come up to her and say, the part in the book where you left your abusive husband really gave me the strength to leave my abusive husband. And in her mind, she goes, there's no part in the book, and if you've read the book, there's no part in the book that has that story in it. Like, it's literally not in the book. She never had an abusive husband. It's a memoir of her life. She never had an abusive husband. She never left her husband. But yet this person somehow got that out of the book, right? Maybe she misread something. Maybe she confused it with another book. But in either case, she left with the strength, right? She experienced the art of the book and then left with a lesson. That's the meaning of the book, not what Elizabeth Gilbert says the meaning of the book is, right? And that goes true with your own art. Now, if you force your art into a box of meaning, like the modern art world tells you should, you'll cripple yourself by not knowing what to make. You'll change your art. You won't express authentically. You'll be possessed by the idea rather than allowing yourself to create and then find the idea, to remember the idea, to discover it. That's the important thing, in my opinion. And this is again my opinion. This is what I'm seeing right now as I'm speaking. I'm acting out as the artist. I've been looking around. I've been seeing what's been happening globally, politically, socially, culturally, within the art world, historically and contemporarily. And then now I tell you what I see. That's the role of the artist. The role of the artist, like I said, stands at the edge of culture, the edge of our world, and looks out into the other, looks out into the future, into the divine, into the thing that's beyond our understanding, beyond the 3D, encapsulates it, and then expresses out their truest version of themselves into something. And then while they're making it, realizes what it is about them that made them make it, And then what about them allowed them to make it come true? So in reality here, what I'm saying is that by definition, you cannot escape the archetype. You cannot escape the divine. You cannot escape the truth of all of this, right? You can't. And I'm not saying to go, again, I'm not saying to go find a religion and be this or be that. Do what you need. Find your own path. Pick and choose, right? That's what I'm kind of doing that. I'm picking and choosing parts of everything that I've learned and putting it together and assimilating it and integrating it into myself. Right? Carl Jung talks about archetypes, that archetypes are a universal truth that lies beneath the 3D structure of our reality. It's the structure below. It's the geometry below our world. And the archetype inhabits, as a spirit does, it inhabits the thing that attempts to be it, right? And so if you are it, you are it, even if you say you aren't it. And if you are an artist and you're truly an artist, then you are this thing. And you might think all of these things are so heavy, Sean, like what you're talking about is so big. Like, I don't know if I have it in me to be all of these things. You don't need to be all of those things to be it, right? Rather, actually, let me rephrase that. You don't need to attempt to be these things to be these things. It comes from actually not trying to do it, right? If I tell you that, if I'm saying all these things and you're like, oh my God, it seems like a lot of work. No, it's actually the lack of work. It's the lack of trying. It's the lack of not trying to fit the meaning, right? Like I've been saying, you surrender and then from it comes you, right? You surrender to the greater, to the thing above, to your God, whatever it may be, whether it's your creative expression, your children, your alcoholism, right? You surrender to that, and then from it comes your true expression, and that true expression is the divine by definition. Very interesting to me. Ideas that I'm uncovering right now as I say them, and ideas that I think that are important to talk about because we've lost our connection to ritual. We lost our connection to narrative. We lost our connection to God as such, right? We've lost connection to all of these things. And, you know, it doesn't make you stupid to believe in this stuff. It doesn't make you a non-intellectual if you believe in something more powerful than yourself. I mean, my God, like look at the cosmos for a second. Look at how big the cosmos is, right? It's infinitely large. And not only that, the small, right? If you go into the cell and then the atom and then the electron and then the quarks and all of that stuff into the quantum realm, the small is infinitely small as well. And so between the infinitely small into the quantum and then the infinitely large into the cosmos, right sandwiched between those two things, we have a sliver of existence. We have a sliver of consciousness where we get to act out within a three-dimensional world and interact with each other and have experience, right? Like, how does that not blow your mind to an extent where you have no understanding of what anything is? Like to me, that if you can't surrender your rational mind to that and say, yeah, there's definitely something crazy going on here, right? That's the closest thing you'll get as an intellectual atheist to the divine, is just saying, yeah, there's something weird going on here, right? That's the kind of like gateway drug into the divine, is like being like, yeah, there's some unexplained shit happening. And that slowly turns into curiosity. And the more, and from what I've found out is the more that you dig, the more that you figure it out, the more that you experiment, the more that you go into ritual, the more that you go into ceremony, you start to find out that there's something beneath this structure of our reality that kind of ties things together and continues to appear in a fractal nature, right? So the fractal nature is that the thing is small, but it's also large. And it as it gets larger, it becomes itself, right? That's a fractal. So a tree is a fractal, right? A tree stems up, and as it stems up, it stems into smaller stems, and then those into smaller stems, into smaller stems, into smaller stems. And the very, very tips of the trees are like if you look at, you zoom into one little branch of a tree at the very top, it looks like a little mini tree itself, right? If you look at it in the right perspective. The fractals are all around us, right? Not only is there a fractaling in the physical world, but there's a fractaling in the narrative world, in the archetypal world. So the For instance, the Scar and Mufasa story, right, from The Lion King. The Scar resents Mufasa to a point of homicidal rage, where he kills Mufasa and attempts to kill Simba. Right, this is a story of Cain and Abel from the Bible. It's just a retelling of it with lions. Now, I'll tell it to you through the Scar and Mufasa because it removes the dogma of religiosity, right? It removes that from people's interpretation. It allows them to just accept it. So Scar and Mufasa, Scar kills him, and what he does is he doesn't just kill the king so that he can become the king. He sees in Mufasa something that is better than himself. He sees the sacrifice that Mufasa puts toward the nation, puts towards the circle of life, right? And he resents that because he's unable to do that. Because within himself, he goes towards hedonistic desire. He goes towards the thing that he wants in the moment. He does not sacrifice for the greater of himself and for the community. And so what he does is he kills the best version of himself, which is Mufasa. So he destroys what he could actually be if he took it on himself. Like Scar could have just been like, actually, all right, I'm not the king, but maybe Mufasa will pass naturally one day. What I'm going to do is, in my own station, I'm going to do as much good as I possibly can. Instead of trying to kill Simba, I'm going to raise him to be a noble man, noble, lion man, right? I'm going to raise all of the people within my community. I'm going to bring them up, right? And no, he doesn't do that. He says, I'm unable to do that because I look at the structure of reality and I say, it is against me. And because it's against me, I'm going to take my revenge out on the world. And by doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove what's potential. I'm going to delete the potential from the world and say that, well, look, now it doesn't exist. So I don't have to live up to it. Right? That's the story of Lion King. So he kills him, and look what happens, right? The circle of life is unhinged. It falls apart. The place becomes barren. There's no food for anybody. It turns to hell, right? It's tyranny and hell. Okay. Now, that story is not just the story of Cain and Abel and Scar and Mufasa, the hostile brothers. The hostile brother, that archetype is a fractal within yourself, within the community, within your family, and then the community, and then within the government, within the states, within the globe. Okay. Within yourself, you have a version of you that wants to aim up, that wants to do good, that wants to be the best version of yourself, that wants to go on the diet, that wants to go to the gym, that wants to, take care of your whatever, right? That wants to get a promotion, that wants to aim up. And it's willing to sacrifice your hedonistic pleasures of video games and eating out and saving money, and it wants to do those things. But there's also a version of you inside of you that is Scar, that tells you, no, don't do that. It's a dark force. It comes in and says, no. The structure of the world is against you, and it's not your fault that you haven't aimed up enough. It's actually the world's fault. The way that the world is made to make you suffer. And so instead of working on yourself and taking responsibility on yourself to aim upward, what you're going to do is kill that version of yourself that wants to aim up through resentment, through bitterness, through depression, through alcohol, through vices, through pornography, through all of these things that make you less of yourself and more of the worst version of yourself. So you start to aim down, become resentful, depressed, like I said. Right? This is a very deep psychological interpretation of Scar and Mufasa, but it's all there. It is all inside the movie. And it's all inside of you. So the fractal it's in you, it's also in your family. So you might actually have somebody in your family that you don't get along with, right? Everybody has this. They have a parent or a sibling. One of them thinks they're doing better, and maybe you think you're the one that's right, and you don't really know if you're the one that's right or not, because you can't do it. You can't actually see. And so you could ask people that are outside looking in, and they'll probably give you a half-cocked version of the truth. And maybe somebody who really loves you will tell you, you know what, Sean, you're actually the one that's in the wrong here. And it's up to you to take on the responsibility to say, you know what, I am actually in the wrong. I'm going to make it better. Or if you're not in the wrong, what you can do is try to be open to what is happening to the person who is in the wrong and say, let me take you in with love instead of a reversal of your own resentment, a mirroring of your own resentment. You say, I'm not going to stoop to that level, and I'm going to bring only love and gratitude towards you, and hope that what you can bring forth is actually the better version of yourself as well, right? So it's like These are all written inside the narrative of these stories. And whether or not we acknowledge that they're there, like whether or not I can actually, or you can actually see them before I explain them to you just now, when you watch the movie, all of that is encoded into your identity because you're seeing it being enacted. You're seeing it happen in front of you, even though they're cartoon lines. And this is what story is. And that's why narrative has an archetypal structure that is below everything. And that archetypal structure is not just within the specific, it fractalizes outward into the large. And so the story of Cain and Abel and Scar and Mufasa is not only in the self, it's in the family, it's in the community, it's in the governments, it's in the social structure, right? I mean, how often do you hear today that people say that the structure of the world is wrought with deception, is wrought with corruption? And maybe it is, right? Maybe we should be aiming in a different direction. I'm not here to say which one is right, which one's wrong, but what I've found is that when I take it on myself to do the right thing, and when I take it on myself to make my community stronger, to make my family stronger, everything gets better also. So though you might not think it, acting properly and acting with this idea that we're here to do good and we're here to aim up always. We're here to do it voluntarily. Like I choose to do it myself. That will help the world a lot more than shaking your fist up at God and saying that the structure of the world is no good, as Cain did, because that often leads, like I said, to resentment and your nervous system collapsing and a lot more, right? You create a hell of your own making. Well, do the opposite, right? Become Mufasa and say, no matter how bad it gets, I will always look to sacrifice what's best, what I think is best, in order to make it better, right? So if you think going out to party is the best fun, if you think that going out to eat every weekend and spending a bunch of money is the best fun, is the best use of your time and your energy and your money and your wealth and your abundance, if you think that watching pornography or watching movies or scrolling or any of those vice behaviors is valuable to you, playing video games, right? You might think that they're valuable, right? Having a strong social circle where all you do is hang out and play is good. But at a certain point, it starts to eat away at the other parts of yourself that are more powerful, the parts of yourself that are yearning for the greater good. So you sacrifice away some of those things, or at least you limit the amount of times that you're doing it per day and per year and per month. And then you watch as your life starts to expand. It's kind of a very intense ritual and ceremony that you have to take on with yourself. And as you do this, it just happens. Like it's like, that's an archetypal truth as well. If you sacrifice for a greater version of yourself, then you will become a greater version of yourself. It's like inherent, like you do it. It's like A plus B equals C. Like it just happens. But it only happens when you choose to do it. And when you choose to do it for that fact, for the aim of your better self. Now, I'm going to go into another idea here, another story, and it's going to connect to all of this as well. Now, you guys have probably all seen Star Wars, especially the original ones, hopefully. And you've probably all seen Pinocchio. And then also another story that it harkens back to is Jonah and the Whale. Now, it came up recently in one of my one-on-ones with a client, which was really cool. We were talking about these stories, and they were describing Jonah and the Whale. Jonah's the guy that denies God. He gets on a boat. He gets thrown off the boat, ends up in the belly of a whale, the very bottom of the depths of the ocean, where the ocean could be swallowing him. It doesn't, because he's safe inside the belly of a whale, which is weird. How could he be safe in there, right? It's a mythical story. Inside the belly of the whale, in the darkest moment, he has a conversation with God or the Father. Pinocchio goes through his life. He's told not to lie. He ends up lying a bunch, and he turns into a jackass. Literally turns into an actual jackass. His father gets swallowed by the belly of the whale, or by a whale. He goes to save his father, and inside the belly of the whale, again, the father is there, and he saves the father in the darkest moment and comes out reintegrated into a new version of himself where he no longer lies and he's being honest. Good. Star Wars. Luke is shown the Force. He has to be honest to be connected to the Force. Whenever he's dishonest or isn't acting authentically, the Force sees that and he doesn't be able to feel it, right? It's all feeling, they say. He goes into the Death Star and he finds Darth Vader, who ends up being his father, right? Luke, I am your father. So in the depths of space, inside the belly of the Death Star or the belly of the monster, he finds his father. Now, why is this story being told over and over? And I really thought about it this weekend. Actually, I went to a little gathering with some friends and we talked about it a little bit. And during the conversation, it came to me. The father is, like, if you think of what the spirit of the father or the archetype of the father is, it's a thing that protects. It's a thing that transmutes chaos into order. It's the thing that turns the unknown into the known. It's the thing that sees beyond the haze, right? It's the thing that when you look up to your father when you're a kid, you think of them as a superhero. You think of them like they can do anything. They know what to do. Right, especially if it's a healthy father and a strong masculine figure that is able to be there for you and is an integrated human himself. The spirit of that, right? If you take away the specifics of the individual, right? You take away the specifics of Darth Vader, you take away the specifics of Geppetto, you find that within that is the spirit of the father, and the spirit of the father is good. Let's say. Now, when Luke finds Darth Vader in the Death Star, Luke has always sensed in him a version of Anakin Skywalker, which he was before he turned into Darth Vader. He senses a version of him that's still in there. He senses the good that's still in him. So what it's saying is that when you enter and you look at the deepest, darkest, scariest place of your life, right? Inside the deepest, darkest place, right? Inside the Death Star, all there is enemy around you. All there is death around you. You escape the Death Star, where are you? You're in the vacuum of space, you're dead. You're in the whale, you escape it, where are you? You're underwater, you drown, right? In the moment of complete fear of death, within that, there is a divine spirit and light that can bring you out of it, right? That's what the story is saying. Within the darkest moment, there is still the glimmer of potential. There's still the chance that good can still prevail. And in all of the stories, what happens, right? Jonah talks to God. He gets spit out by the whale. Then he returns and does his true calling. Pinocchio saves Geppetto. They escape the whale, and Pinocchio becomes a good boy, right? He doesn't lie anymore. He becomes a real boy, even. Luke, his father actually does die, but Luke takes on the spirit, right? He sees the good in him. He says goodbye to his actual father, and then now inhabits in himself that spirit. So the spirit leaves from his father and enters him, and when he leaves, he's a more integrated person, and he's able to save the world, right? So again, in the darkest moment, no matter how dark it gets, right? Think about World War II. Horrible, horrible atrocities, genocide, Auschwitz, internment camps, concentration camps, death camps, right? People being murdered by the millions. That is a horrible part of the history of the 1900s, but it stopped, right? Inside of that, inside the darkest, most evil place, which story won? Right? Which story won? Well, the war ended, right? The Nazis were extinguished, right? In the darkest moment, there is a glimmer of light. It is shown in story, in sci-fi, but it's also visible in our existence. You can go back to the American history. There was slavery. Yes, slavery was horrible. Owning people is immoral. We did that. Humans did that. Human people, like I am a human person and they were human people and they did that. They also stopped doing it, right? The good prevailed. The truth prevailed. So in all moments of terror, in all moments of fear, truth prevails. That's the archetype. And that could be attributed to the spirit of the father. It could be attributed to that same story that I was just talking about with Star Wars, Geppetto, Pinocchio, and Jonah and the Whale. It can be attributed to a lot of things. Now, that's what I'm trying to get at with both of these episodes here, episode 21 and 22. There's a lot to this that we don't understand. And it's the role of the artist to put the discovery, the remembering, and the understanding at the highest possible level of of motivation. And when the artist sits there and says, I will be the one, I'm choosing myself to be the one that looks out beyond our culture with the integration of what we are as a whole, I will tell us as a shaman, as a prophet, as an artist, as all of those things, through the actions that I take on within my practice of ceremony and ritual, within the artistic practice of expression, through the surrender of the divine, through the surrender of the divine, in allowance of my spirit to calm so that I can work within that sense, right? Like I said earlier, if you have the sense of impending doom, of scarcity, of these fears, your nervous system is contracted. It's not expanding. It's not open. It's closed. Well, when you create through that mindset and that nervous system setup, your art does not hit the mark, right? It can't. And so through ritual, through ceremony, through the divine, through this, just the surrendering of that memento mori, of all of those things that I've discussed, you bring forth your truest expression honestly. And so that's what it is. If you're someone who's an artist and you fear what someone else might say out there, you can't express yourself authentically. If I fear what someone will say about my art because they don't think it's what I say it is, or I think it is, I won't make through my own self. I'll make through the lens of the fear. And the lens of the fear of someone else's opinion is not my authentic self. If I'm not connected to my authentic self, I'm not connected to the divine expression that is the art, that is the artist. So I surrender to those things. I surrender to the idea of misinterpretation. I surrender to the idea of being judged for what I make. I make as though I will make and then destroy it. I won't actually do it, but in my mind, I think I'm going to make something and then burn it so no one else sees it and only I get to see it because I'm making it for me because it's me that's being made, right? I'm not making something that's external to me. I'm making myself on the canvas. And when I do that, I am connected to the divine without my intellectual mind saying that I'm not, without me thinking, oh, this is stupid. That we live in an atheistic world of cause and effect. No. By definition, if you are fully integrated and honest with yourself and you express through that feeling, through that mode, you are acting through the divine, by definition. I'm going to close with this last thing, guys. I want you to go out there and kind of start to question these things. Like if you are somebody who's atheist, agnostic, right? Secularist, whatever it is, even if you're somebody that's religious, like you could be Christian and not know these things. What is your God? Like you can say it's God, but what is the thing that you value most here in the 3D? Does it change who you are? Does it does it influence your decision making? Does it alter the way you think? Alter the way that you judge people and act towards them? That's your God. What do you place at the top that helps you make decisions about your art? What value do you place at the top? Is it honesty or is it notoriety? Is it fame? Is it likes? Is it sales? Why do you make the art? Is it because you want to become famous, or is it because you want to make good art? You want to make art that's from you, right? If you're putting money at the top and you want to sell your art and you want to make a bunch of money, your art will suffer. And the world might not know, but you will know, because honesty is always from within. No one will ever know the truth, but you will. And if you live with a dishonesty for a long time, it will eat at you until you are suffering without any purpose. So honesty, always. Integrity, always. And then when you go out and you create. So go out there and create.